I'm Teresa Caraggio, and this is Third Paradigm. My title today is Set and the Reset, Return of the Fratricidal Psychopath God. Let's jump in. And the full text that I'm reading, along with creepy and gorgeous AI art from Amy Rosebush, is at thirdparadigm.substack.com. Happy Moloch Day. Remember that the Torah has no vowels. From Laurent Guillenot, the word MLK, vocalized as Moloch, is identical to the Hebrew word for king. In Leviticus and Jeremiah, child sacrifices are said to be offered to Moloch, but in the name of Yahweh and in his temple. A process of dissociation was operated between the evil god MLK, who asked the sacrifice of every firstborn son 8 days after birth, and the good God Yahweh, who forbade this practice. Is it just a coincidence that MLK means both Moloch and king? The name Martin King has the same syllables as MLK, but that name was never used. Was Martin meant to be a Gandhi taming the Black Panthers, a Jesus telling Judean rebels to submit the other cheek for the Romans to slap, before he went rogue with his Vietnam speech? Today also augurs the Maga man. Maga is the Egyptian crocodile demon deity that is the son of Seth, who was proto-YHWH, described by Laurent as a sociopath among the gods. Seth killed and dismembered his brother Osiris so he could never resurrect. In the Osiris myth, the most important Egyptian myth, Seth is portrayed as the usurper who murdered and mutilated his own brother Osiris. Osiris's sister wife, Isis, reassembled his corpse and resurrected her dead brother-husband with the help of the goddess Nephthys. The resurrection lasted long enough to conceive his son and heir, Horus. Horus sought revenge upon Set, and many of the ancient Egyptian myths describe their conflicts. So what would be the ultimate revenge for Seth? To make his son and heir, Maga, into the heir and the new Messiah. And the first order of business will be to put the DOGE in charge of everything, the Department of Government Efficiency headed by Elon Musk, and we can render unto Caesar the coin of the DOGE realm. In Secret Itinerary, Kitten Seeking Answers pointed me to Seeds of the Void, who wrote, "Perhaps in all of recorded history, there was never a more perfect example of a cold and calculating plutocratic oligarchy than the one that despotically ruled the empire of Venice. While the chief despot was aptly called the Doge, his governance merely reflected the will of the many northern Italian Black Nobility, petty tyrants who collectively ruled the realm from behind the curtain, as always. Now, fast forward to 2025 and see the many parallels that eerily abound throughout the U.S. empire. So, just to be clear, the New World Order is now swiftly manifesting under the aegis of Trump as the Doge of the U.S. empire and Elon Musk as the Doge of the global technocracy. They continue. The Northern Italian Black Nobility, NIBN, represents the wealthiest and most powerful of all the secret societies down through the ages. The NIBN actually created and secretly controls the Rothschild and Rockefeller banking dynasties, which were used to establish the current global economic and financial system, the latest version of the bankster-managed control mechanism foisted on the entire planetary civilization by the even more clandestine Babylonian banking cartel. During the 13th and 14th centuries, the major cities of northern Italy, such as Venice, Genoa, Milan, Turin, Florence, Bologna, Verona, etc., were the home of the world's first corporations. All of these corporations were established under the umbrella of the Roman Catholic Church. The northern Italian banking houses and merchants who formed them were some of the most powerful and richest families in the world, which saw Catholic Italian noblemen and landed gentry intermarry with Khazarian merchants and Jewish money changers. That is why so many of today's Khazarian cabal families can trace their ancestry back to the northern Italian Black Nobility. The occult signaling can't get any clearer. According to demonology, every time that you can get someone to repeat a lie, a demon possesses them. All the names are changed to protect the guilty. Heroes and villains have been inverted. The magic power of words has been usurped. The magistrates and puppet majesties of Maga don't just trust in the magic of words, however. 5,000 years ago, the Habaru, Hebrew mafia backed the spells and incantations with terrorism. The henchmen have changed, but the methods remain the same. Violence isn't enough, however, when people are thinking clearly, because those defending their homes and families are always more motivated than the mercenaries. Word spells need to be cast to sow confusion. If we fall for false histories and false religions, we learn the wrong lessons and a demon snags our tongue. Fall and false mean the same. Taking back the words is more than lip service. Discombobulation. I describe what we're going through as the 5D reset. Depopulation, destruction, dispossession, disorientation, and depression. I've thought to add discombobulation, a word developed in the 1800s as a mock Latin term meaning to confuse, to embarrass, to render unable to think clearly. A critical component of this is that people blame themselves when bad things happen. We take responsibility. It's our own fault. We don't compare notes to figure out the pattern because we're humiliated by our own failure. When the patterns are pointed out, the most common response is, why would anyone do that? It stops the mind from going any further. We can think as far as pharmaceutical profits, but not deliberate deaths. Perhaps climate change is a scam, but why would they start fires and cause hurricanes? Even when the evidence is irrefutable, we stay stuck looking at the money to be made in disaster cleanups, lithium mines, and prime real estate. Those are all true, but not the whole story. To those who've usurped ownership of the world, money is irrelevant. They create the money. Our usurped land, houses, and labor back it. To understand the motivation in this final sprint towards annihilation requires going back in time to find out who, how, what, where, when, and then why. In Hebrews, in Egyptian, slaves or masters, I went back 5,000 years to ancient Egypt. I looked at the Habaru putting cities under siege as recorded on the stone tablets of the Amarna letters. Egyptian records state that the Hyksos, an abbreviation of Heka Kasut, were cruel and ruthless rulers who imposed slavery through taxation. This technique parallels the biblical story of Joseph, as I detail. The eviction of the Hyksos from Egypt parallels the Hebrew Exodus, as shown by Israeli scholars. In this episode, I'll look at the spells and rituals of sacrifice to get power and approval from bloodthirsty gods. I connect these again to biblical stories, and I follow the clues that this is what we're seeing today, a sprint towards the ultimate Holocaust. Black magic and Holocaust. Neferhotep goes back to the first Holocaust in ancient history. He writes, "The name Heka is identical with the Egyptian word magic. Heka is among the oldest gods of Egypt, recognized as early as the pre-dynastic period and appearing in inscriptions in the early dynastic period, and that goes from 6000 to 2613 BCE. From the time of the early dynastic period and developed during the Old Kingdom, Heka was linked to the creative aspects of the heart and the tongue. The heart was considered the seat of one's individual personality, thought, and feeling, while the tongue gave expression to these aspects. Sia was a personification of the heart, Hu of the tongue, and Heka the power which infused both. Egyptologist Geraldine Pinch explains, "The intellectual powers that enabled the Creator to bring himself/herself into existence and to create other beings were sometimes conceptualized as deities. The most important of these were the gods Sia, Hu, and Heka. Sia was the power of perception or insight, which allowed the Creator to visualize other forms. Hu was the power of authoritative speech, which enabled the Creator to bring things into being by naming them. In coffin text, Hu and Sia are said to be with their father, Atum, every day, the power by which the thoughts and commands of the Creator became reality was Heka. In the same way that Heka, Sia, and Hu enabled the gods to first create the world, they allowed human beings to think, feel, and express themselves. One of the ways in which people did this was through the use of magic. There was no aspect of ancient Egyptian life which was untouched by magic. Egyptologist James Henry Breasted comments on this. The belief in magic penetrated the whole substance of ancient Egyptian life, dominating popular custom and constantly appearing in the simplest acts of the daily household routine, as much a matter of course as sleep or the preparation of food. Neferhotep also notes that the hieroglyphic spelling includes the symbol for the word Ka, the ancient Egyptian concept of the vital force. So Heka Ka-Sut is the power by which the thoughts and commands of the Creator become reality, combined with the vital force of Sut. And Sut is another way of pronouncing Seth. Heka usurps the ritual power of the Father and Creator, inverting the roles. It then uses this magic in the service of destruction. Crocodilian theology. An article on the demon deity Maga by John Rogers explores crocodilian theology. He looks at the role of the demonic and the politicization of evil in the changing relationship between local experience and state religion. He starts by defining Heka. He writes, Heka was both a deity and, more often, a concept. As a deity, he traveled in the divine bark, protecting the sun god on his nightly journey through the underworld. As a concept, Heka is far more widespread, permeating the fabric of Egyptian existence. In its most basic sense, Heka is ritual action, the knowledge of which can be gained by people to influence the non-physical world. Heka is used then to assimilate the divinity through identification and issue commands and or threats, which have power because of the divine speech. Here is a spell related to Maga, and the donkey is the animal of Set. I am the son of Set. He does not allow me to bite him. This recitation is to be said over donkey excrement, put on the breast of the person with a twig of persea, heat and grind and fill the eye with it. In a later document, a stele from the 19th dynasty shows Maga attempting to attack Horus, in a variation on the theme of Maga as a dangerous attacker who seeks to disrupt the cosmic order by destroying the members of the pantheon. However, towards the end of the first millennium, Maga, who had previously been conceptualized as a negative force acting against the pantheon, the living, and the justified dead, underwent a complete change of identity at some point after this period, perhaps in an opposite parallel to the ongoing demonization of his father Set. So at this point, Set had been entirely associated with foreign rule, becoming reviled as a demon, with all statues and drawings defaced. Another change of identity was needed. Something from nothing. According to Ancient Egypt Online, the self-created and solo progenitor of all the Heliopolis gods is Atum. Atum was the first and most important ancient Egyptian god to be worshipped in Jenu, Heliopolis, Lower Egypt. Although in later times Ra rose in importance in the city and eclipsed him to some extent. He was the main deity of Pithom in the eastern delta. Atum was the creator god in the Heliopolitan Ennead. The earliest record of Atum is the pyramid text and the coffin text. In the beginning there was nothing, none. A mound of earth rose from none, and upon it Atum created himself. He spat Shu, air, and Tefnut, water, from his mouth. He named Shu as life and Tefnut as order, and entwined them together. Atum became tired and wanted a place to rest, so he kissed his daughter Tefnut and created the first mound to rise from the waters of Nun. Shu and Tefnut gave birth to the earth, Geb, and the sky, Nut, who in turn gave birth to Osiris, Isis, Set, Nephthys, and Horus the Elder. But his creative nature has two sides. In the Book of the Dead, Atum tells Osiris that he will eventually destroy the world, submerging everything back into the primal waters of Nun, which were all that existed at the beginning of time. In this non-existence, Atum and Osiris would survive in the form of serpents. Atum equals Atum? The creation story of Genesis usurps these gods. It first imagines a self-originated God with no others, a father who creates alone with no mother, no female deity. If Atum is seen as Adam, the creator of all now becomes a subservient, a creation. Woman is subservient to Adam, a mere rib. The first creation blamed on Eve is evil, when she eats of the fruit of its tree, and Eve brings forth all the ills of life. The second creation blamed on Eve is also evil in the form of Cain. Cain has the inheritance as the oldest son, and brings his offering to the Lord, but doesn't divide it properly. If we skip to the end of Genesis, Joseph imposes a 1/5 tax on grain that's due to Joseph, the lord and father of Pharaoh. Abel the shepherd gives a blood offering. The shepherds, as we saw in Hebrews in Egypt, were the Hebrew mafia terrorists for those who became the Heka Kasut. They created the first Holocaust in ancient history, as Neferhotep notes, the first burnt offering and mass blood sacrifice, and the Lord was pleased. Hitting the ball. Cain then kills his younger brother Abel, according to the narration. If we remember there are no vowels in the Torah, Abel becomes BL, same as Baal. The Canaanite agricultural deity becomes the blood sacrifice of Cain. Cain absorbs the guilt and the curse, forever evicted from home and condemned to be a nomad, but with the protection of the Lord. And Baal is destroyed with magic symbolic words. In The Cursed People, Laurent Guillenot looks at Cain's relationship to the Kenites. He writes, the name of the Kenites, Cain, actually means blacksmith or metal worker. The Bible confirms this occupation for the descendants of Cain, Tubal-Cain. What Joseph collects from the Egyptian farmers is their grain, but he redeems it for all the money in and around Egypt. What that requires is coinage, and what coinage requires is metalsmiths. As I talk about in my book's second chapter, Making a Market for Plunder, debts of grain were inefficient to collect, store, and distribute. Debt slavery could only be imposed with coinage. the traveling goldsmiths who turned the local lord's treasure into a self-replenishing war machine, would have been the most reviled people of the ancient world. To slaughter them on the road would be a blessing for all. And then Eve produces the son Seth. Seth is the son of Atum, the first in a long line of biblical younger brothers who prosper and usurp the inheritance from the older. In the time of Seth, Yahweh is first named. Osiris and Atum become serpents, crushed under the heel. The serpent must crawl on its belly to be hated and killed by the sons of Eve. And Maga walks upright to become a man, a god, and a smiling crocodile. For a psychoanalysis of the patriarchs of Genesis from the perspective of slave wives, raped daughters, and disinherited sons, here is Genesis of the dysfunctional family. And to look at the creation story along with Peter Gabriel and the I Ching, this is In the Blood of Eden. Thank you for watching.